Welcome to Statistics. In this screencast, I'll just introduce the course and some of the big ideas in statistics. So, what is statistics? My definition is that statistics is the art and science of turning data into knowledge. It's the science of learning to listen and hear the story that the data is trying to tell us in order to understand the world, interpret numbers, draw conclusions about the world, analyze, and make decisions. So one of the things that statistics does for us, much of what we do in an introductory stats course, is to use mathematical tools to understand random variation. Variation is everywhere. And with statistics, we can try to understand random variation and use our understanding to make decisions and draw conclusions about the world. One big idea in an introductory statistics course, or one big idea, is that a picture is worth 1,000 words. With a picture, you can tell an interesting and important story quickly and easily. Here's a quick example. This is a graph that shows how the size of houses for sale in Fitchburg, this was like 2013, are related to the price. And we also have it broken down by whether the house is wood-burning or not wood-burning fireplace. We'll leave that for a second and just look at what the general trend we see here. It's not a very surprising trend. The bigger the house, the more the cost. Down here on the x-axis we have the size, 2,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet. Here we have the price, $250,000, $500,000, $750,000. And so what this picture is telling us is the bigger houses cost more, and in a very regular, predictable way. It looks like a line would fit this data pretty well. And then with the colors, we get something else on top of all that. We can compare the houses that have wood-burning fireplaces to the ones that don't. Now, I think a wood-burning fireplace would make a house attractive. I expected to find that houses with wood-burning fireplaces would cost more if they were the same size as ones without. But if you look at this picture, it looks like it's definitely not more and maybe less. That not having wood-burning fireplace can make a house of whatever size more desirable once you fix the size. And we might speculate as to why that's true. In fact, do speculate. Why are houses without wood-burning fireplaces more expensive than houses of about the same size with wood-burning fireplaces? So that's one story that statistics tells, or one story that we can learn. One of the big ideas is that with pictures we can get a lot with a short amount of effort. Another big idea is that with numerical summaries, just a few numerical summaries can help us understand large quantitative data sets quickly and easily. Quantitative data which are numbers. So with just a few numerical summaries, we can understand big data sets of numbers. And in this course, we'll become familiar with some of the more common ones: mean, median, standard deviation, interquartile range, and 5-number summary. Another big idea in statistics is that it's important to understand the baseline when you're talking about a change in the rate or the risk of something. You just have to know what the baseline is. And here's an example from just last year or 2 years ago. Big headlines. Bacon was classified as carcinogenic. Processed meat increased the risk of colon cancer by 18%. That sounds pretty scary, 18% increase in the risk of colon cancer. But if you dig a little further, what that means is that it increases the risk from 5.6% to 6.6%. That 18% increase wasn't 18 percentage points, it was 18% of this 5.6% risk. And when you do the numbers, you see, oh, the risk of colon cancer goes from 5.6% to 6.6%. That's not that big a change. And that's if you ate about 2 pieces of bacon every single day. Would the risk go up by that much? That's just not very compelling. So yeah, the statistics tells us that something's going on here, but once we look at the baseline, it just doesn't seem as scary. Sorry. And here's a reference if you want to see the story that goes with this. Another important idea is that a representative sample, even a small sample, if it's representative, can give information about a population that's in the millions. So you want to know something about a huge population, then even a few hundred or smaller numbers from that population, if it's representative, if they represent the population, if they look like the rest of the population, can tell you about millions. And this is a good time to say that in statistics, when we use the word population, we're not necessarily talking about people. We could be talking about the population of all cars that are produced in the United States, or a population could refer to the size of houses in the United States. An unrepresentative sample, though, another big idea is that biased samples are worthless. I tell my students that if they find that they're using biased data which is not a random sample, not a good sample from the population, then don't try to do anything with it except throw it away, put it in the garbage, and then go hang out with your friends, watch a movie with your sweetheart, but do something else, because bad data is just junk, and ignore it. One of the most important ideas from my point of view for this course, and that I hope people walk away with and really understand, is that association does not imply causation. Two variables being associated does not mean that one causes the other. Here's a simple, sort of whimsical example. In elementary schools, children with bigger feet do better on math tests. And it's not because bigger feet is somehow connected to brain size or brain ability. It's because big feet goes with being older. 6th graders do better on math tests than 1st graders. Not surprising. Here's one that's also an important one, and it's not quite as obvious as the big feet. Children who grow up in homes in which they listen to a lot of classical music, in which parents nurture a love of classical music, tend to do well in school, they have higher incomes, and they're less likely to get divorced. And it's not because the classical music has some kind of effect on their brain. It's because children who grow up in homes in which a love of classical music is nurtured are more likely to be growing up in families with high socioeconomic class, high levels of education, and income on the part of the parents. More likely. Now, it's perfectly true that plenty of people who grow up in lower socioeconomic class homes do just fine later in life in school and family income and marriage. And it's certainly true that some people can grow up listening to classical music in affluent homes and just have miserable lives. But there's an association between socioeconomic class and how people do later in life, and listening to classical music is connected to, or is more often in homes of educated, affluent families. So just because two variables are associated does not mean that one causes the other. That's important. Causation does imply causation. So you want to show causation. The gold standard for demonstrating causation and effect, for demonstrating cause and effect, is a randomized controlled experiment. So if we took 1,000 random 5-year-olds and instructed half of their parents to play classical music to them every day, and instructed the other half of the children to instructed their parents that they weren't allowed to play classical music, then if we saw differences, we could say that the music was the cause, because the children were just randomly sorted. It would be very unlikely that was the case, but in any case, the point is that with a controlled experiment, you can demonstrate cause and effect. Another really important one is that statistical significance does not imply practical importance or practical significance. So it's been statistically proven in clinical research that over-the-counter sleep aids help insomniacs fall asleep faster. Well, that's exciting. If it takes you usually 2 hours to fall asleep, you'd like to take something that will help you fall asleep faster. But if it's only 10 minutes faster, maybe the statistic shows that it really happens. So the data you got was statistically significant, but 10 minutes is not enough of practical importance to care about. Want more of an introduction? I strongly recommend that you watch the first video in the series, Against All Odds, Inside Statistics. You can just Google the title or go to the website here They've got some great videos, and I strongly encourage all my students to watch these as we work through the course to get another take or another point of view on some of the things that we'll be doing and working on in the course. So those are some of the big ideas that we'll be exploring throughout the course, some in more detail than others, but things that every statistics student should know a little about.